Hey everyone, Bob Kendall here. Just want to thank you all for watching my videos. If you do want to support the channel, go to www.kendallreport.com/wavetech. Sign up for our software. You get market grid on 165 individual stocks and indices. You also will get 16,500 buy and sell signals on our entire database. I thank you so much for supporting the channel. Those of you who have already signed up, thank you so much. Welcome everyone to the Kendall Report, where I share my 41 years of experience to help you manage your portfolios and protect your wealth. Remember to subscribe, like, and share these videos. Before getting into tonight's video, I want to remind everyone this will be the final video for this week. There also will not be a live stream on Wednesday. So the next time I will address you will be on Sunday evening. Also, just take this opportunity to wish everybody in the U.S. happy Thanksgiving, and international viewers, you have a great weekend coming ahead. As we look back on yesterday's action, it was a crazy explosion to the upside, with the S&P finishing at all-time new high close. Did not print a new high. We still have to take out that 36.45.80 number that's laying out there, but that shouldn't be a big deal. But the Russell continued to move higher. We also saw the leadership continue to expand as that spread that I've been talking about continue. There was an event that happened both on the S&P and the Russell. We got an RXT sell signal. Now this does not mean that there's a top signal, but it does suggest that we're likely to see some consolidation before moving higher. So it's going to be interesting today. I'll go through all the details here in a few minutes in the technical section. But make no mistake, the market is very powerful. They're actually looking forward to, I think, a lot of things, like no tariffs on China and a completely open market that is going to benefit most of the large corporations that have been held back. But we are definitely seeing the action in the energy sector, as it was one of the strongest leaders again today, up over 5%. We're continuing to see that capacity trade come back on, and I'm actually going to bring up the Buffett airline trade, which has actually rallied almost 25% in the last 2 weeks since we got the last buy on the airlines. So I will go through that also when I go through the database output for tonight. As we go forward in this week, today is a huge day. There is an amazing amount of information coming out today. We have the claims coming out, which is expected to be around 750 plus. Continuing claims, what came in at around 6.3 last week. I'm expecting this to come in below 6 million today, and I think this is going to set a bullish tone. The other thing that's coming out today is GDP. This is the second revision. That's expected to show a plus 33.1%. That is likely to be a big number that will be watched very closely. If it comes in lower than that number, that may bring in some negativity in the markets, but overall it looks to me that it will come in probably as expected, possibly even better than expected. And this goes in line with my expectations for the continuing claims numbers to print a better number as well. We have new home sales. That's going to be strong. Also, we're going to see durable goods come out, just a ton of stuff. So look at the calendar. It's going to be an action-packed day from a fundamental viewpoint. As we look back on yesterday, we did see a number of positive metrics come out again. Retail continues to come in better than everybody expects it to, but we're seeing value stocks, mid caps, small caps, everything's really exploding right now. And that is the backdrop that I've been talking about for the last couple months that is going to drive these markets sharply higher. Now we're a long ways from printing any type of top. You'll see tonight as I go through the WaveTech database that we're not anywhere close to getting overbought or finishing this particular sequence that we're in. But as we look out to Friday, my expectation is that we're going to get into somewhat of a holiday market, and we may see a lot of folks not available on Friday, and market action may be somewhat muted. As we look into Friday's close, I would like to see the market actually print above 3610 plus on Friday and maintaining most of the strength that we've already seen this week. I do expect to see the Russell and the NASDAQ continue right alongside as these markets move much higher into this sequence. Let's take a look at the charts and see what it looks like for tomorrow, and if there's any clue how this thing might go out on Friday. As we begin with the WaveTech Database, once again we've saw about 700 new buy signals between the daily models, about 170 sell signals. We have a bullish rotation yet again. We moved from about 72% to 73.6% bullish, so not a big jump there, but we're seeing new trades come in. Now the current average duration has went from about 9 to 10.5, so we are seeing the average duration move forward, but we're still a long ways from being overbought, and we're still seeing new buy signals rotate in. Now it is starting to get just a little frothy from a percent bullish standpoint, but from a duration standpoint, it still says there's a lot to go. Right now the duration percent filled is only 26%, and the average profit on these trades, and this is on literally 12,000 symbols, is 11.48%, and currently the current average profit is only 6.2, so we're about halfway there on the profits on a short-term basis, but this is an average normalized number, which there are going to be a lot of stocks that will move a lot more than 11%. But when you start to look at this large database, these numbers start to compact a bit, but it takes a while for these average numbers to be fulfilled. As I mentioned in the opening comments, the Buffett portfolio that I put together back in, I just happened to look at this and I thought it was of interest, is that we've seen this sharp move up, and if we look at the current open positions, you see on the November 6th and the 10th, came in and bought all of these stocks, including Boeing is in here. You're looking at all of these stocks are all up anywhere from around 10. The big one is Boeing's up 39%, but we're looking at the overall group doing very well. And this is the early stages of what's likely to be a continued rally if I were to go through a full analysis of this portfolio. But this is also part of the capacity trade that relates to the energy trade. This is why all of these stocks are starting to move. Has a lot to do with the perception of the vaccine coming into play. The first market I'm going to cover tonight, we're going to start with the spread chart with long the IWM and short the NASDAQ. And you can see this trade is just accelerating to the upside, which is short the NASDAQ and long the small cap stock. So this trade should continue to accelerate. I don't see it even getting close to any sort of a top of at this time. And this is more evident when we look at the actual ratio between the NASDAQ and the Russell. This is an illustration of that ratio between the Russell and the NASDAQ. And you can see it's moving up, but it's just now getting at the top end of the base. The trade I was just showing you is a much more explosive chart than the actual ratios. This is just long the Russell and basically long the NASDAQ as a ratio. So it's just showing you the overperformance. The other trade is actually showing you if you get aggressive and short the NASDAQ and go long the small cap. As I mentioned in the opening comments, we did get an RXT sell in the Russell. Yesterday's RXT number was 1843.99. We closed at 1862.17. We are seeing overnight some strength, but the S&P futures have traded off the high substantially, and all the markets have pulled back after seeing some follow-through early in the overnight session. I'll go through this detail in the S&P here in a minute. This chart suggests this RXT number does not mean that there's a major top here, but it does suggest that we'll come back into the market grid, most likely an S1, S2 range, and that is at 1845 to 1836. And as I mentioned, we went out at 1853. So we're talking maybe 20 handles at tops would be the back, and that would be over the next 1 to 2 sessions. And then momentum says, as we look at the PPMs, says that we should continue this upward surge. The next market that I'll cover is the S&P futures. They're showing up 2.25, but we did trade as high as 36.55, and we've sold off about 21 handles off of the highs in the evening session. We've seen some reasonable volume tonight, 87,000 contracts. Right now we're about an hour away from the London opening. And what we're seeing here is momentum also fading, and there's a big divergence that's happening. PPM1 is at a plus 0.19. PPM2 is very strong and is above its first and second derivative, but PPM3 is also turned down. So we may not be ready just to continue this explosion. At least a couple days. We got an RXT sell here on the futures. RXT was 36.17. The close was 36.32. We are almost trading toward the S1 number, which is 36.21. So far, 36.32 is the low. So we should see at least 36.21. Could go as low as 36.08 as it sets up this pattern. And we're likely to go back into the market grid, not just see a screaming pattern out of here every day. So this is further evidence of a high level consolidation. This number that we printed 2 weeks ago at the 36.68 high still remains in place. So far overnight, 36.55. On the futures, we have not made a new price high yet. We have seen a new high close, not an intraday price high. And for me, that's more significant than the higher close. As I go to the S&P cash, the RXT sell signal was more pronounced here. RXT was 36.11. The high was 36.42. We also came just shy of that high that we printed on the 9th at 36.45. So we printed just below that. Right now we are due to open slightly higher based on where the futures are, but we're only up 50 cents on the session. So like I said, we got this RXT sell. Expectations would be for at least a move back toward 36.26 to 36.17. The extreme today would be an S3, 36.07. So as I mentioned in the futures, it doesn't look like we're in this runaway market here, even though yesterday felt as strong as it did. As far as coming into, as we look at the weekly chart, it will be significant that we remain above last week's high. I mentioned in the opening comments we want to see a minimum of a 36.10 close on the S&P cash. The preferred close would be something above 36.28, which was last week's high. If we print above 10 but below the 36.28 level, that will still be a positive close, but not as positive if we print at 36.28. If we get that close, then we will definitely see some higher prices as we come into next week. The PPMs are all telling us that we are going to see higher prices in this pattern, even if it takes another week to be able to set up the true breakout. Wednesday's action and Friday's close will tell us a lot about what's going to be coming next. The next market that I'll cover is the NASDAQ futures. Now, the NASDAQ did not get an RXT sell. The RXT yesterday was 12,084. We closed at 12,076. The high was 12,104. And what's interesting about this, I was thinking we would get an upward sloping market grid, and it's flattened out again. So as we look at the expectations for today, R2 is 12,171. We've been at 12,173. So we've already printed an R2 overnight. We could continue on towards the 12,222 level, which would be an R3 print. but S1 will definitely be major support. We also have the 10-day moving average now is 11,962. That was the number that I talked about a few days ago when we were at the 11,900 level. So that number is continuing to move up underneath this market. As we look at the PPMs here, they're rolling over in spite of the futures being up 0.31. We're not seeing an increase in momentum. It's a bit of a warning sign. For right now, I believe it just means we're going to continue to trade within the grid and that this market isn't going to turn into a sharply higher range, similar like what we had back in August on the left-hand side of the screen here. As in the S&P, the weekly chart will be important. A close above last week's high, 12,096, will be important here. We're currently trading right now at the 12,112 level. If we look at the grid for weekly, that number is R2 is 12,301. We've seen 12,173, which is just above R1. I mentioned this in last night's video that I thought we'd print between R1, R2. We could extend above this level, but it looks to me that this 12,301 will probably be the top end of the target. S1, 11,718. We've seen 11,808. I mentioned this also on Monday and last night's video that I don't expect we're going to see it take out S1 at this time. There's also the 10-week moving average, 11,662 is major support. And the PPMs on PPM1 is accelerating. PPM2 is flat, but still very positive at 0.75. So all of the metrics here, as we look at the weeklies, are still very positive. So there's no sign that there's going to be any big rollover at this time. The final market that I'll cover tonight is gold. It's been under substantial pressure. We went through the 200-day moving average. That is currently at 1814. We're trading at 1810. There's not a lot of support at all at this level. On the weekly charts, I'll be able to show you some further support that is likely to hold. But for now, as we look at the market grid for today, 1802 is S1, S2, 1793, S3, 1783. This market is just in a huge downtrend and appears to be accelerating, and it is somewhat disappointing from a longer-term trend standpoint that we're seeing a move through the 200-day moving average. As we go to the weekly chart, we've traded down just about to the STX number, which is 1793. The low's been 1803. S3 is 1813, so we've traded through that number, and STX will be important to hold. But this is going to set up even a further downward pattern for next week. We could see this thing move down into the mid 1700, maybe even down to 1720 as this trend continues to accelerate. You can see on PPM1 is minus 0.83 now. It's just a downward acceleration. All three of the PPMs have just rolled over. So we're looking at the potential for at least a 1720 to 1700 move on gold at this time. This will complete the video for tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you on Sunday night.